Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning. I'm so excited you've joined me again today. And today we're talking with Stefanie. And you know how sometimes you just find these people that they've got really great ideas and they're just amazing to talk to. And they introduce you to people they know and they're amazing too. And you just feel like, how come I haven't had this person in my life for years? Because they are doing such cool things, and just being around them makes me smarter and more creative and more interesting. Well, that's kind of the way Stefanie feels to me, is that she's just so interesting. And the reason that I do the Fearless Females podcast is because I was there's a lot of reasons, and you guys have heard a lot of them, but one of the reasons is I was sitting in it was a fast food place, like a noodles sort of fast casual dining, and I was reading something about the owner, and I'm like, gosh, I would just love to sit down and ask this person some questions about their journey and why they decided to do what they did and how they got there and what makes them so awesome. And I'm like, I wonder if they would answer those questions if I sat down and asked them. And that's what this podcast is, just asking people that are doing cool things, questions about, hey, why are you doing that? Or what made you decide to do it this way? Or how did you get to be so awesome? And what were the things that took you down this path? So I loved hearing how somebody's journey unfolded, and you're going to love Stefanie's journey. So the thing that I took most out of this interview is one time she said, well, I couldn't find the person I wanted to work for, so I created it. And I think that sometimes that captures what so many of us feel, especially as kind of women navigating our careers. We're not always trying to build some big business. We just want to solve a problem or create a solution. And all of a sudden we find ourselves as accidental entrepreneurs, accidental business owners, accidental leaders, and we strive our best to kind of fill that position that we find ourselves accidentally in. Using our intuitive knowledge, the skills that we've gained, we, at least my guests, succeed admirably in this accidental place that they ended up. But I find it so interesting how many of us don't set out on the course that we eventually end up on, but we just fulfill that course beautifully. Our journey is exactly where we were meant to be, even though that wasn't exactly how we started out. So I hope that you guys find a lot of value in this. Let's get started with Stefanie. Good morning, Fearless Females. So we are on today with Stefanie Francis. She is the founder and CEO of Hootology. Thank you so much for joining us today, Stefanie. I'm so excited to get to hear your story.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to you. Thanks for having me.
My first question is always the same, and I love it. What is your favorite book?
So I knew this question was coming because it's the one consistent one that you have. And I historically have two that I default to, but I took a moment to kind of think of what's most pressing for me in this particular moment. And I'll admit I grabbed a couple, and it's interesting that all the ones that I was drawn to are all really tiny. And I think it speaks to I was always more geared towards math, and so I feel like I have to get something succinct and powerful from a words perspective. I think is harder. So I always come back to the 4 agreements, and right now it's standing the test of time really well. I have a new one that's the psychoanalyst meets Marina Abramovic, which is unreal. Uh-huh. And I actually had a funny moment at a theater outing where she was actually sitting in the seat I was supposed to be assigned to. So we had a little chat, which was pretty surreal New York moment.
Yeah.
And then The War of Art, for those of you that are not familiar, it is really powerful. It's written by a old straight white guy. So there's some old straight white guy stuff in it, but really it really speaks to how hard it is to bring something new to life and the pressures that come with that in a way that I had never thought about before. It relates things to gravity, and gravity being a force that we're all beholden to, but we can't see or technically, unless we're maybe a super intense scientist, describe what it is. But we know we're all impacted by it. And he talks about another force of resistance. And when we're pressing against our our psychological, emotional limits, the force of resistance that comes to make something really, really difficult to get over the finish line, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
The last one was a book of poetry. I've never, 52, and I've never really kind of had a moment where I truly got poetry until this Andrea Gibson book came to me, and it's You Better Be Lightning. And there's a poem in there called The Night Shift that I think, as I talk to a lot of my friends who really like poetry, there's always like that one poem that sort of is like just turns the whole world on.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that moment with this poem that's Night Shift. And so for those of you that don't know Andrea Gibson, she recently passed away of cancer, and a documentary was made of her life, her last year of her life. That is, I think it won Sundance and is doing quite well. So.
Oh, that's neat. Well, that is a really broad spectrum too. I love that.
Yeah.
And
So
I like
took
that.
the liberty. You said one, and I brought you four, but those are all. I couldn't decide, and I couldn't narrow it down. So that's where we're at this morning.
I know. I love that. That's how my book list gets longer and longer and turns into like a book mountain that I've got. So, well, thank you so much for those suggestions. And I'm definitely going to check some of them out. I haven't read poetry either, really, like in general. So I'm really intrigued to start with that one. I think that would be cool. Tell me a little bit about your journey, Stefanie. Did you always know what you wanted to be? How did you get where you're at? I know people laugh at that a lot. Like, tell me a little bit about you.
Well, I didn't. I definitely did not know where I was going, and I'm not sure I still know now.
Are you still trying to decide what you're going to be when you grow up? Because I am.
Yeah. There's many ways that I admire young folks who are really, really clear, or even in my generation, folks who really had a clarity. And that's just not how it has evolved for me. It's really been and still remains an ongoing evolution. And I feel just more comfortable with that now, of really leaning into, this is what I know today, and this is what's true for today, and this is the highest and best version of what I could be doing in this moment. But I'm pretty confident there's something else coming, which is really, really exciting, to not feel like I have to be sure. And if I could go back, I wish I could let myself feel a lot less pressure to be sure along the way. So as I think about the journey, and as I think about versus like kind of going through like a timeline of my experiences, I think it really is around, leaving a lot of things and knowing that in retrospect was so hard. And the pressure to stay. So whether that be leaving, where I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, where I didn't have much exposure to the world, if you will, from a lot of different angles of that, to ending up in Washington, D.C., 4 blocks from the White House at George Washington University, where I was fortunate enough to play Division I volleyball, but really be immersed in a world that was so incredible, being so close to the heart of so much that was happening politically and socially in those times in the early 1990s.
Yeah.
And then, at the time I really wanted to coach collegiate volleyball. I thought that was going to be my entire career. I was sure, if you will, that would be the case. And I got a great opportunity and ended up coaching at Iowa State and then at University of San Diego. And it was one of those things when you get behind the scenes of something and you realize, oh gosh, this isn't what I thought behind the scenes. And stepping away from that and from kind of leaders, if you will, that weren't admirable, and kind of walking away from what was my dream, and then really getting lucky and falling into social services and being able to work with abused and neglected teenagers. And I had a moment where I was tasked to kind of become the person in charge at a specific program. And my task was to go negotiate budget for the next year and at San Diego County offices. And I just remember looking at the office and being like, I don't want to go in there. Like, this isn't, I'm so far removed from why I got into this, which is looking face to face with young folks and families that are going through some pretty tough stuff. And that is what drew me into it. And now I was, dealing with, state employees to try and get what was right done. And that just seemed like not the best use of my time. And so I sold that, went to business school, and ended up in the first job post business school in corporate America, which was, oh boy, not a great fit, which that was a pretty easy one to leave. But then ended up in the business with someone who the time came where it was just time to part ways and walking away from what was my kind of heart and soul in that particular moment, and ended up in New York, which was never on the life plan, that's for darn sure. Mm-hmm. Working for an agency that I'm glad to say I got fired from. I feel like everybody I admire has these great, like, fired, getting fired stories. If you listen to Kara Swisher, she's like, I've been fired 20 times. I'm like, everybody I admire has all these great fired stories. And I had the benefit of being fired in such a way where I thought it was my fault. Like, I thought I had left. And then it got clarified that no, indeed, you were fired. And it's like, oh yes, that's great. I didn't have to feel it in the moment. And really ended up starting my own thing, which kind of by gosh, I don't know. What is the right word for this? I started my Hootology because I couldn't find the person I wanted to work for.
Oh, uh-huh.
And so it wasn't this drive of like, I want to start my own thing and be the one in charge and create something. It was, I ran out of time. I ran out of rope, and I needed to, I guess, create the thing I was looking for.
Oh, that's so interesting. Like you're an accidental entrepreneur.
100%. Yes, undoubtedly.
Yeah. I think that we find that in our lives sometimes, that we end up somewhere where we're like, I did not plan. I never planned on being a business owner. It felt too risky to me.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find the sort of ethics and ethos and mission vision maybe in other places. So you're driven to tell me about your company. What do you do?
Yeah, Hootology is a modernized market research agency, which is the old way that I kind of by default would describe it. But what it has evolved into is actually accidentally kind of becoming a tech platform. So if you had told me when I was an art major at George Washington University in 1991 that I would be the owner of a tech company, I would have laughed quite a bit. In fact, I probably would have been like, what does that mean? So over the course of time, we ended up creating a new way to conduct market research or consumer insights. So understanding the psychology of any group of people, right? Depending on what the major business decision that's at hand is. So whether it be kind of a strategic business decision, or whether it be around new product innovation or ideation, or big marketing and advertising, just to be sure that what you're trying to help folks understand can come through in a meaningful way that works. We still conduct kind of full service market research projects, but only on the platform we've created, and are about to get into licensing it, which is an exciting kind of new moment of learning for us.
Yeah, you're like, what? How did I end up here? That's so great. That's neat, though. I really like that, the path. And I liked what you said about, like, you shouldn't have to know who you're going to be. You shouldn't have to be sure of things when you're young. I find it
forever.
Yeah, like you're asking these 18 and 19-year-olds, like, what are you going to be when you grow up? And expecting them at that age with absolutely zero experience to just know what they want to do. I'm like,
well, I think what's interesting, even what you just said, it made me think about, and I'm going to get a little existential here, which I am known to do. But, you said, we shouldn't know at 18 or 19. We shouldn't be sure. And ironically, the background of my screen that I'm looking at you on is literally a picture of the Milky Way and the universe and everything that we know the Milky Way is such a tiny little portion of. And I love to think about, like, how can we be sure about anything at any age? Like, with how little we understand about why we're here and what the the bigger picture is, if there is one. And, we're really just kind of all popped out on this one particular rock in the middle of something monstrous. And so I kind of take a lot of pride in not being sure of anything. And I feel like that is the freedom, and that possibly should be, it's my own goal of getting less and less sure the older I get, because that means I'm more and more open to new things and new possibilities than I would be if I was sure.
That's the word that kept coming to my mind, is like possibilities. Like if you're not sure, then there are possibilities out there, and curiosity and questions. And those are all my favorite things. So tell me a little bit, Stefanie, what is the best investment you've made in yourself as you've been kind of going along this journey? Is there something you're like, oh, I'm so glad I did that? My life wouldn't have been the same.
Yeah, I'm gonna share the first thing that comes to my mind. I imagine if I paused and reflected for a week or so, I might come up with a different version of this. But the top answer is therapy. And, I think I'm really fortunate in that the tides move me at an early age into moments and opportunities where I had kind of fairly early exposure for someone who's squarely Gen X, right? My coach in college brought in a sports psychologist to our team. And that was the first time I'd ever seen or really understood, outside of Bob Newhart, right, what an actual psychologist could do and could be. And then I ended up working in, like I said, nonprofit and social services, which was surrounded by psychologists. And at the time, it hadn't yet been revealed to me how much I had to unlearn and how much I had to heal in terms of things that I thought were my fault, or I thought were baked into me as being just a flawed person. And that has been quite a long journey. It has reignited of recent in terms of kind of reaching that next level of understanding. And I'm so grateful that the tide shifted in that way, because I can't even begin to imagine where I would be, or if I would be, or who I would be if not for all of those gifts along the way.
I think that's really important. I think that I hear the answer a lot, coaching, but I think that therapy is like personal coaching. It helps you to understand where you get some of these beliefs from and then work through them. And you're right. Like as Gen Xers, like we were kind of taught therapy was a bad word, right? I mean, you didn't get help for anything. And I love that, like that your early experiences allowed you to look deeper into that, because I fully believe that it changes lives.
Yeah, for sure.
What about the worst advice someone gave you? Do you remember a time that you got some really bad advice, and did you take it?
I sometimes wonder if the worst advice is being told to take advice. I wonder if we shouldn't be seeking outside thoughts, or perspectives, if you will, from people that we admire, who are either ahead of us or kind of in our whatever our peer group is at the moment, or from folks that are younger than us in different ways. And then take all those thoughts and kind of create our own path forward for whatever the decision at hand is. I think about it as I'm in this really new world for me of understanding the investment ecosystem as it relates to startups. And when I kind of landed here by accident by creating a tech platform, I didn't even understand the difference between, an accelerator and a private equity and angels and venture capitalists. And I certainly do now, and have had a chance to kind of peek behind the curtains of all of those and get to know people associated with each of those things. And in the process, it's just been fascinating. And I think it's really a good kind of example around this advice question, because something as simple as like your pitch deck, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody you talk to has a very strong, very clear directive about what you should do to change your pitch deck. And it's actually hilarious. It's not almost hilarious. It's hilarious because they're all coming from a certain vantage point, which may or may not be the best one. And then all that's going to do is have us, all of us, every single startup company out there, spending time spinning, chasing the tail of the thing that the last person told us that has to be done for this thing, versus having the next conversation with somebody who's actually going to get it without a deck, right? Or without, the perfect font size and the perfect flow from the problem, the solution, the opportunity. We all understand the framework. And at a certain point, once you understand the framework or the rules and play by the rules, then it really becomes how can you find the people who get that we don't need those rules because we understand. And so, I'm getting to the place where I listen a lot to people, the few people, maybe the 10 or 12 people that I admire so deeply. And then I know that it's only me that can put all that together and trust whatever comes forward within me. And so I'm less reliant on listening and executing on somebody else's idea of what my life should be. But that's not to say I don't very much value some thoughts. I do have one piece of distinct advice though that I got that might be fun for you, and it was when I was earlier and younger and significantly less comfortable in my own skin, and I was seeking anybody to tell me exactly what to do. And there was a woman who was she was much older than me, probably 20, 25 years older, and she was a beacon of the community, if you will. And she had a design company and she very much cared about her aesthetic. And we were having lunch, a fairly prominent place in Scottsdale, Arizona. And she was telling me how I needed to do more to have a brand image of my own. And I thought it was hilarious and ridiculous. And she said that I need to wear a belt. That was where we started. And I was like, wait, I'm trying to talk about like the future of my business career. Like, what are you talking about? And she goes, Stefanie, you're 6'1", and maybe your clients don't want you to be that tall. And so if you wear a belt, you will seem shorter. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then someone came up to her who knew of her, and they just were like in awe of who she was. And I can't believe I get to talk to you. And I'm sitting there just being quiet. Person didn't even notice or acknowledge me. And then the woman I was talking to came back after the stranger left. And she said, see, Stefanie, this is why you have to have an image. And I looked at her and I said, but I don't want to attract people like that in my life. And so it was a pretty funny moment. And I guess the punchline is when we left, I accidentally was going a direction by where her car was, and she parked in a handicapped spot.
Oh my gosh.
And I know her very well. And so there wasn't some hidden disability. Like I'm very well aware. I didn't want to put that assumption that, if I don't see it, therefore it's not. I knew. And it was just this perfect moment where I was like, oh my gosh, you have no idea that how much I now do not respect you because of that is so much bigger than how much you may not value me because I'm not wearing a belt or not wearing the right clothes. So I would say just everyone, let's just listen to our gut and ourselves and get in touch with that. And we'll probably the answers will be easy for all of us.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting because I will ask probably 10, 20 people for their advice on a situation. And then I take that collective and kind of come up with what feels right for me. And my husband is always yelling at me. He's like, why do you ask for my advice if you don't take it? And I'm like, well, I did take it into account. And like, I turned it around and I'm like, is this where I want to go? Or is this not where I want to go? So I can see where getting a lot of different opinions, like for me, it's important, but also having the self inner fortitude to understand that the opinion that matters is yours because it's your life. It's the way you're going to come across and you're going to live. And I also love that what you're attracting with the way that you live your life and the decisions that you make, the people that you're attracting into your life will be attracted to that kind of pitch deck or that kind of fashion sense or something like that, right? Like,
or not, and also perfect, right? And like I said, I have a new person who's cutting my hair, and I said, I just want it to be a warning, like whatever you do, just like I want people to understand, like that like you know what you're getting, and so if you come in here and you're like surprised, like I told you, like it's like this is.
First off, you knew who you were getting.
Yeah, that was your choice. I mean, that's not, I mean, we're good. We're good.
I love that. I don't even know what my hairdresser would do if I'm like, I just want you to make me into a warning. I don't know what she would do with me. I love that idea. I love that question, Stefanie. You've made me think.
Yeah. Well, it would be the execution of your insides on your outsides as it relates to your hair, right? So it would have to be kind of unique to whoever you are. And then I think that's actually what I'm asking her is like, don't give me something radical for the sake of being radical, right? And that's no fun.
Yeah,
but help me make whatever's happening up here reflective of who I am on the inside. And that's been a fun journey.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning. I probably would have the same hairdo. Like it's very serious, you know. I've always got my hair kind of pulled back in a bun or something like that. Very efficient, very serious. Like that probably is me. So, what about a do-over? If you could kind of look back along your journey and think about, oh, if I knew then what I know now, I would do this situation differently. I would change the way I did this. What would that be? Is there something you can think of?
Oh, so many. There's I just had a visual of like the scroll coming out and just like rolling and continuing to roll of things I wish I had done differently or handled differently. And I tend to gravitate towards to that sliding doors mentality of, no matter what the path, we would have ended up right here talking to each other today, and for the same reasons and around the same topics. And so it's hard to kind of look at that one particular moment and be like, oh, I distinctly wish I had done this particular thing differently in my quote unquote personal life or in my career, because it's all made me who I am today, and it's gotten me here. There's sort of one distinct moment where after I graduated from undergrad, I had a professor who was really phenomenal, and I at the time wanted to coach, as I mentioned, and she told me about a graduate program at Smith that was specifically for athletic coaches, around like future collegiate coaches. And she's like, look, they don't take people straight out of undergrad, but I will write you a letter to see if my advocacy of you specifically could get you in. And I got in. And I think, and I didn't go. The decision was to move to Iowa to coach at Iowa State or to go to graduate school at Smith at 22. And that's probably the most clear, like, oh, wow. Like that would have been a really, really distinct moment. I was at an event last night at Barnard, and I turned to my friend who I was with, and I was like, gosh, can you imagine if we were 17, 18 and we're at an institution like a Barnard or like a Smith, and how different it could be. And she was like, I think about it all the time. And yet I still think, had I not chosen to go to Ames, Iowa, and I had gone to Smith, I still probably would be exactly where I am today. And so, yeah.
That's interesting, because I kind of always think, well, there's two paths that converge in a woods, right? And like, if you take one, that it takes you to a different place than the other one. But the way you kind of look at it is they're all going to the same place. It's just a different way to get there. That's so interesting. Huh. I love that idea. I'm going to think on that. So if you could high five yourself for a really great financial decision in your past, what would it be and why?
Money.
It's my favorite. I can't help it.
I know. It's so interesting. High five. Whew, that feels extremely celebratory. And I would say what's most true for me today is that it's It's something that I only recently started to take seriously and quite honestly feel worthy of. And so as it relates to high-fiving myself, I would say probably a different answer than what you're looking for or thinking about, which is allowing myself to be open to understanding the psychology of money. And really that's become kind of a Pandora's box around realizing that for a lot of people, certainly in this country, there's a really deep ingrained story around money from in so many different
Yeah.
almost everybody I know dearly has a very, very extremely different connection psychologically to money. And I think that force, if we're going to kind of go back to invisible forces, really impacts a lot of how we see ourselves and how
Mm-hmm.
comfortable we feel either talking about money, valuing money, aspiring for money. And so my only high five I can give myself right now is that I'm really actively diving into that and trying to change the story around money. So that's my high five.
I love that. I actually do. I do a lot of work around figuring out what your money story is
Mm,
and
yeah.
kind of living close to your values because I think that, to your point, like money as a concept or as a rule or as a like a reward or like a measure of accomplishment, like that's never going to make you truly happy as if you understand what your values are and you're using that as a tool to live your values.
Yeah.
So I love that answer at a 10. That's the best answer, Stephanie. I love it. That's great.
Uh, well, I think the value piece is great. It's like from your angle, it sounds like what you're saying is the how you deploy your one a specific one resource, which is money. There's others, of course,
Right.
and to have that be in alignment with your values. I know Scott Galloway has his big resist and unsubscribe right now, which is really kind of fascinating to listen to and understand, and then understand the ties and the rationale as to where he's coming from,
Mhm.
and that action piece around each person's hard-earned money and their decisions as to where to spend it in alignment with their values is important. And I still think there's something big before that, right?
Mhm.
And that's the deep psychology piece. And I
Yeah.
have friends who truly grew up in what would be considered poverty, who then went on to get a PhD, and there's a different psychology of understanding, and then
Mhm.
very different from my situation where I grew up in a family that cared a lot about money and didn't feel a part of that or worthy of that
Mhm.
by
Mhm.
design, I think. And then realizing the untying that we both have to do in that case, and that's just two of
Yeah.
30
A
stories
million
of people close to
examples.
me, and
Yeah.
that's the piece I think that we gotta get our hands on before we can even consider how do we execute our
Right,
values,
right. How do I use it? How do I
deploy our
use it
values.
as
Yeah.
tools? Yeah, is what is my money story? What preconceived notions? Yeah, that sort of thing. I love that. I love delving into that. That's so cool. What scared you the most, Stephanie, as you kind of started down your journey, your career journey? And does it still?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that in the past tense. I'm terrified still. And I think the beauty about that question in retrospect is I feel fortunate to have a lot of times not known what I was getting into as it relates to my career path. If I understood everything that it would have what it was going to take to bring this tech platform to life, I don't know if I would have started it. But I think that saying scared, so that's obviously fear. I use the word terror. I don't know if that's something to kind of wish away. I think it's something to embrace and to realize kind of back to, we don't know why we're here and what we're doing. It's going to be scary. Everything new is going to be and should be scary.
Mhm.
And if we're no longer a little bit afraid, then how boring, right? It means we have comfort and command over everything we're doing and in our lives, and no matter what, there's always so much more to do and try and get better, whether it be within our own selves or something we're working on in work.
Mm-hmm.
So what scared me the most, probably some version of being seen, like a consistent way,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of time and comfort spent into what that meant at every stage. And it really is, it's still palpable today. Like I have a keynote in 2 days, and it's probably the biggest and best thing I've done yet. And I'm terrified.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't want to not be terrified, because that wouldn't be true. So
Yeah. A little, I like that idea. Like a little bit, there's growth there when you're scared, when you have to be just a little bit fearless. That's where the growth comes. If you are totally good at everything you're doing and complacent, like there's probably not a whole lot of growth there, right?
right.
Yeah. What about along your journey? Did you face any unique challenges because you were a woman?
I think that's a great question. So I don't think this is a common, question for women in the business world. And I sometimes think I'm not the right person to answer that. Mostly, as I mentioned, 6'1", masculine of center, lesbian. And so I don't have the same kind of experience that a lot of my female friends who kind of fall more into the traditional
Right.
representation do. And so I don't know how to answer that. I think the unique angle that I had, which is not necessarily a favorable one, is there were significant chunks of my career where I might have been working in a male-dominated industry, and so I got treated like one of the guys, which seems great. And then, got exposure to a lot of like what we'll call locker room talk, and it was discouraging. And I wish in retrospect, maybe this could be one of the things I wish I would have changed, is I wish I could have seen and understood that and been able to speak up and
Mm-hmm.
be a little bit more of an internal advocate that then felt like was possible at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you were young or just didn't want to rock the boat, or?
Well, maybe neither. It was a different day and age, first off. And also I was me, but I wasn't yet me of today, right? So kind of back to that. Would I change it? I wish I would have been able to speak up more, and yet because I didn't, I'm now driven to do so at a bigger scale today, which
Mm.
feels kind of worth it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I like the way you think of that. You can kind of go back and say, do I wish? Yeah, maybe, but it's gotten me where I am today. And that's made me more passionate about whatever this is, whatever I want to say and bring. Yeah. Stefanie, what are you most proud of?
Just in my being. It's been a long journey. It's had some pretty significant lows, including somewhat fairly recently. And I understand not feeling peaceful deeply. I understand feeling truly terrified, and feeling like I don't fit, to the point of that being a painful feeling. I think a lot of us, have a lot of experiences where we don't fit or whatnot for any number of reasons that this world creates. But having spent so many decades not at peace, I think I cherish and understand how valuable of a journey it's been to get to the place, at least for today. I feel at peace, and know there'll be other growth opportunities in the future, but hard fought. So I'm really proud of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Any advice for a young lady who's just starting down this path to help her succeed and be successful like you?
Yeah, well, I guess if I say that no one should listen to advice, and then I feel like I would say to this young person, well, you shouldn't listen to mine either.
Yeah.
And I would probably say, listen, get in touch as soon as you can to your inner voice, whatever that means for you. For some people, it's spiritual, and for others, that sounds a little bit too spiritual and woo woo. But no matter what we call it, at the end of the day, we all have it. And so I would hopefully encourage them to listen to themselves and in all of the ways that that can happen. And the sooner that they can have the connection to whatever source that is for them, the more rapidly they'll get to wherever they want to be. And just know, I'd say no, it's going to be scary. I talk to a lot of younger folks and who want the fear to go away, and I kind of come in with let's embrace the fear, because it's not going to go away if you're going to keep trying to do the next big thing. And so listen to yourself and accept that fear is part of the process.
Yeah, I like that. How do you get in touch with your inner light or source or truth or whatever you want to call it? Any suggestions for?
Well, I can only speak for what has been true for me. And I think that there's so many different ways that I've heard people close to me that have kind of gotten there. So I know for me, when I first started meditating probably 25 years ago, there was no possible way. Like, it was impossible. Like, just the thoughts were just so too fast, too quick, I couldn't turn things off. And kind of just staying consistent with that process has helped me only with a lot of time and in retrospect be able to say, oh, it's not about silencing, it's about understanding. It's about understanding how your mind works. It's about knowing when it's activated in good and not so good ways, to giving it that space where it was able to, my own thinking, I'll stick to me, was able to kind of reveal itself in the moment of quiet. And even if that moment was a minute in the beginning, there's still times where, I can't meditate as for whatever my current sort of target number is, which I keep kind of sacred to myself. But even now, I just cut it back by 75% because things are hard, and to sit down for that long, it just seems impossible. And I've been doing it for 25 years. And so I realize, I'm like, oh wow, I'm fighting against a constraint I made on myself. Like, what feels good for me, and it's a single digit number, and it feels great because it's like I'm back to kind of keeping it simple. So some version of being quiet, but I don't know, that doesn't have to be meditation, and it doesn't have to be but turning off the noise, especially for younger folks who grew up in the social media world. Like, I don't know if I could have advice for how to calm that, to turn that volume down when that's the world someone grew up in, that's so loud, and I didn't have that. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's good advice. I love that. I think that I have a hard time. I joke, I went to yoga one time and they told me to be like silent and thoughtful for 30 seconds and I about died. And that it impacted me enough. It was years and years ago, and it impacted me enough that I'm like, I've got to figure out a way to be still with myself.
Yeah.
And I'm still not very good at it, but I'm better than I was 20 years ago. So I like that. I think that's a really good advice. Well, thank you so much, Stefanie, for spending some time with us and just sharing your journey story. Can you tell me, if there is a young lady who wants to reach out to you and ask you questions, how does she get in touch with you?
Sure. My email is Stefanie@Hootology.com. I spell my name with an F and not a PH. So F and Steph, it tracks on a couple levels. Or on LinkedIn, Stefanie Francis of Hootology. Lots of ways.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it too. Thank you.